Married at First Sight Australia, Episode 30. So on to our last three couples. We have Belinda and Patrick, Beck and Jake, and Georgia and Liam. Starting with Belinda and Patrick, we saw these two wake up of a morning. Knowing that this was their last morning, Belinda wasn't too sure how to feel. You could see her mind wandering. I'm afraid of leaving the apartment. I've got so used to being here with Patrick. What happens now? We're going to be leaving each other today. She was getting anxious. Whilst they were packing, you could see her getting emotional. Yeah, this is new to her. She's had 29 years of not having to think about anybody else but herself. Hasn't been in a relationship. Doesn't know how it feels. Now she's having to leave the person that she's falling in love with, I'm presuming here. The emotions are getting to her. They hugged, they kissed. I don't know how many times they hugged and kissed, but she didn't want to let go. She did not want to let go. This is alien to her. They spent 24/7 together. For how long? I don't know, 3 months? I'm just guessing. And now they're having to go their separate ways. So they departed. He was the first to leave. At the doorway, they locked eyes. Didn't say anything for a little while. Just looked at each other. And then she went running into his arms. She didn't want to let him go. Dear. That looks like a love story there. That there was a love story. Now she's on her own in the apartment, dwelling on what could be. Moving on to Beck and Jake. They woke up this morning. He's still pondering on the question of whether they have a future. The question that he said about, can you see us together in 3 months? Still pondering on his mind. And with them having the discussion in bed this morning, I don't think he was any clearer. She confused him probably even more. He doesn't know where he stands now. He hasn't got a clue. As he said, maybe it's me living in a fantasy world. Maybe I'm being too optimistic. That's what he said when he was talking to the camera. Oh dear, this guy. He's just flogging a dead horse here. I have nothing to say about her. She makes my blood boil. She's a waste of time. But anyway, they finished packing. He was the first to leave, so he gave her a hug. They then kissed and said their goodbyes. But as we know, Jake still had no closure of where he stood. So he's going home, pondering, what do I do next? Do I say yes or do I say no? Moving on to Georgia and Liam. Now these two at the dinner party fell out because what we see today is Georgia waking up in a separate apartment. Yes, in a separate apartment. So what we saw next was Liam come to Georgia's apartment to talk about what happened last night. I don't even know where to start. I found the whole conversation quite confusing. They were both blaming each other for last night. Let's just put it that way. They were going round in circles. They didn't accomplish anything with that chat. It ended with Liam saying, maybe it's good that we're having time apart now, so we have time to sort of think, process, etc. That's what he said. But then it left her even more confused because now she's saying, I don't even know what the argument's about anymore. She's more confused. So am I. So their parting ways didn't end on a great note. Maybe the time away will do them good. We're just going to have to wait and see. Continuing with Georgia and Liam, when Georgia arrived back home. We saw her go out with her mum and discuss what had happened. And her mum gave her some words of advice. I actually did like the words of advice her mum gave her. Yes, that's someone that's lived. That is someone that's lived. I hope she takes it. And then we saw Liam do the same with one of his girlfriends, had the chat about what happened. And she too gave him some words of advice. She came across as someone that had her head screwed on. She gave some good words of advice. She pointed out his faults. Yes, she did. And I hope he listens. So as we saw our last 3 remaining couples pondering on their decisions. Would it be a yes or would it be no? So moving forward, our first couple to renew their vows were Beck and Jake. I will say, Jake knows how to scrub up well. He needs to wear suits more often. He looks good in a suit. Very suave. As he said, when waiting at the altar, he's expecting the worst, but hoping for the best. We also saw him standing at the altar with his eyes closed, like he was praying for the best. Oh dear. I have no words. We eventually saw Beck rock up in her white dress. She did look very nice actually. I did like that dress. Don't like her though, but I like the dress. These two kissed, hugged, complimented each other. She complimented him on his tie. Yes, his tie. Remember the first time he wasn't wearing one and she made a point about it. So this time he made sure he didn't forget. He looked very happy to see her. But her face, I couldn't read it. Anyway, enough about her. Moving on to the vows. Jake was the first to recite his vows. 1 or 2 points he made in those vows were about her personality. She was rude, condescending and cold. And he couldn't understand why somebody could be like that. That's what he said. I couldn't say it any better. But then he goes on to say that the reason why he stayed was he had a crazy attraction to her. Crazy attraction? To that? Don't be looking at her looks, because that's a mask. That's the devil in disguise. Yes, the devil in disguise. He then goes on to say, being with her is a risk, but the risk is worth taking. Is this boy for real? Is this boy stupid? Is he stupid? Throughout the whole experiment, he's been looking at her through rose-tinted glasses. And up to now, that still hasn't changed. Oh, I've had enough. Anyway, he said yes. Moving on to Miss Sourpuss. Beck's vows. The first half of the vows, I just thought was a lot of dribble. A pack of lies. That's all I saw. Talking about him objectifying her, about the roller coaster they were on. As he said in his vows, she's rude, condescending and cold. Virtually digging him out is the way I'm going to say it. I'm sorry, I can't agree with it. Now, in the second half of the vows, she started talking about the positives about him, about how they connected later on in the experiment, and how he's thoughtful, caring, he'll do a lot for others, and that he has a calm and steady demeanour, and is also in tune with his feelings. Yeah, she went on. Only now she's realised this. Only now. Only now. Only now. She then goes on to say She doesn't know what the future holds, but she's not ready to walk away without giving it her all. That's what she said. That's what she said. Hang on a minute. You've had 3 months to give it your all. You haven't done shit. But now you want to try. Oh, please. Pull the other one. So just to conclude, she said yes. She said yes. So these two sealed their relationship with a kiss, with the view of living happily ever after. I wish Jake luck. I really do. Because he's going to need it. So moving on, our next couple were Georgia and Liam. Now these two, we know they departed on a bad note, went back to their families, wondering what to do. So here they are today, looking very tense, nervous, having made a decision. First of all, we saw Liam in his ivory cream suit, looking very smart, I will say. Then we saw Georgia in her white dress, looking very demure, looking very sophisticated. Yes, I like the dress. It suited her. The next thing we saw was Georgia walking down the aisle, looking very serious. Very serious. When she finally arrived at the altar, opposite Liam, he told her she looked beautiful. And she was very much, thank you. She didn't say anything about him though. That was interesting. They didn't even kiss, they didn't even hug. The next thing that happened was Liam said, "Are you ready?" And he went straight into his vows. Ooh, what a cold start. He started by talking about the positives, such as when they met, the first time he laid eyes on her, etc, etc, etc. She was smiling throughout that part. And then came the but, as we already know. But or however. Those are the two words. Then he started talking about the negatives. At that point, her face changed. Then he brought it back again with the but and however on a positive spin. And it ended with him saying he loves her. Yes, that's what he said. He loves her. She had one big smile on her face. It was at that point that she hugged him. Now it was her turn to recite her vows. Again, it all started off on a good note, all the positives. Then we had the but and however. I don't even know where to start with this. I got her point. She started talking about the dinner party and how, that went downhill. That didn't go too well. She also talked about him gaslighting her. Yeah, she went in. And when I say she went in, the tone of her voice said it all. There was anger behind the voice. Not too sure I would have done it that way. But that's how she did it. So I could already see that his back was up. He was shocked. He was definitely holding it all together. And then you saw Georgia soften her tone and started to tell him about his personality traits. Yeah, that's the way I'm going to describe it. About him not knowing how to be loved and how he pushes people away. And she went on and on and on. With saying all of that, she ended it by saying she was going to give him another chance. Yes, that's what she said. And that she forgives him. Yes, That's what she said. She then continues to say for him to be open to love, to be open to what family can really mean, and not to let it walk away, because you might just lose the best thing that's ever happened to you. That's what she said. After saying all this, there was a bit of a pause. I don't think either one knew what to do next. But then you saw Liam speak. She grabbed for his hand. I'm not too sure he held it. But his next words were, "Yes, I love you. But hearing those vows, you don't know me. You don't know me at all." Then she turned around and said, "I'm sorry." And then he said, "Don't be sorry." Again, there was a slight pause. He didn't know what to do. Then he started talking about how this is a different Georgia to what he knew. He doesn't know this Georgia here. That's virtually what he's saying. And it was at this point that Georgia threw her cards on the floor and said to him, "It's your call." Yep, that's what she said. It's your call. Liam then continued to talk about what she had written in the cards about the dinner party, and that was an outright lie. Yep, that's what he said. And then he turned around and said to her for her to not forgive him. And he continues to say, as much as he wants to make this work, that just shows that you don't know me, and that he's not going to have a partner that doesn't know him. That's what he said. And then he turned around and said, "Let's just call it quits." Yes, let's just call it quits. And her reply to that was, "Fair enough." Oh my goodness me. Fair enough, she says. And his last words were, "I'm sorry, but it is what it is." And he walked off. The cheeky bugger just walked off. It is what it is. That sounds so disrespectful. Those words, "it is what it is." He was so blasé. It is what it is. So blasé. How dare you? Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And she's just left there, jilted at the altar. Don't know what to do with herself. Standing there. She held her tears though. That's one thing she did. She held it. Next minute you saw her take off her ring and let it drop to the floor. The next time we saw these two, they were in different parts of the building in floods of tears. We saw Georgia definitely in floods of tears. And from a distance we could see Liam sitting on one bench with his head in his hands. The last words we heard were from Georgia saying she still loves him. Yes, she still loves him. Oh, this is terrible. Oh dear. I've never seen something so shocking. I'm absolutely speechless. I have no words. Absolutely speechless. Moving on to our last and final couple, Belinda and Patrick. So we saw Patrick making his way towards the aisle, looking very smart in his blue suit. Again, as I said, I like the colour blue on a man. Yes, he looked very smart. But at the same time, he was very nervous. As he said, one thing he's afraid of is rejection. And he doesn't really know how Belinda feels. And then we see Belinda in her white dress, makeup, hair, looking very glamorous, I must say, looking very pretty. Again, with her. She's thinking, I hope he doesn't say no, because I don't know what I'm going to do if he turns around and says no. So as you can see, they're both thinking the same. So let's see what happens next. When these two met at the altar, they both complimented each other. And all I heard was gossip, 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 gossip. They didn't stop talking. They definitely missed each other. These two are definitely meant to be. I think these guys totally forgot where they were. Then it was Belinda that said, "How about I read my vows first?" Yep. So she started. I actually liked her vows. They were heartfelt. There was one moment where she got a little shaky. She said something like she was grateful that he came into her life, and that's where she got a little shaky. And as usual, Patrick rubbed her arms, as he normally does, just to let her know that he's got her. Yeah, that got me a little choked there. She continued to say that she was falling in love with Patrick, and that she's walking away with a husband, a lifelong partner, and love. Yes, love. So we know the answer was a big yes. He then told her that her vows were beautiful and told her to come here, give me a kiss. Yeah, so they had their kiss a little earlier than expected, but it was nice. So on to Patrick's vows. Just going to recite a few lines from his vows. He said, "She's the nicest girl he's ever met, and he never wants her to change who she is. She's the one he spent his whole life looking for. She's made him the happiest he's ever been, and he can't wait to grow old with her, and that he can't imagine his life without her. And today he can finally tell her that he's in love with her." He's in love. These two then kissed. She got emotional, very tearful. Ah, dear. These two are a pair, but I really like them. I really do. I wish them well. So we come to the end of our vow renewals, of our 6 couples. Only 5 made it to this point. So we're going to have to wait till the reunion dinner party to find out which couples made it and which ones didn't. So on that note, this is where I'm going to leave it. If you like what you heard, please like, comment and subscribe. Till next time.